Hello, guys. Good morning. I hope you are all okay today and you are all excited about what we are about to do. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for the engaging discussions all of you did for last week to discuss Clearwater journals. I got a lot of insights from your discussion, to be honest, and I am actually amazed at how deep you guys can get into uh, interpreting the crimes, the characters, and even the style of the narrator. So I really appreciate those elements. Now, we are going to go to the next stage in our popular literature class. We are now going to start preparing to write a critique essay. Now, what is a critique essay? Now, let me share with you my screen so our discussion can be more focused. Yeah, here it is, a critique essay. What does it mean? What's a critique actually? Well, a critique is actually another word for judgment. That's what it actually means etymologically. But it can also mean an attempt to explain. So it doesn't have to judge like saying something is good and something is bad, something is wrong and something is right. No, it can also mean simply explaining things that you find in a text, in a situation, in a phenomenon, and so on. So for us in this class, I interpret a critique essay as an article that passes a judgment, or it can also be an article or essay that tries to explain some issues in a text without passing any judgment. So these are the two possible meanings of critique, and that's how we use it in this class. First, it can be an article that passes a judgment about the quality of something in a text, or two, it can also be an article that explains certain issues in a text without having to pass any judgment. Okay, now let's go deeper into the critique essay. What does it actually have? So these are the elements of a critique essay. First one, there is an introduction. Usually it's just one paragraph, and it consists of the subject of this essay, which is the title of the book and the name of the writer. And then it also includes some thesis statement. A thesis statement is your main offer in the discussion about a certain topic. In addition to these two, you can add some maybe opening that is engaging, like you start with a quote, or you can also start with an anecdote, or even you can start with a question. You can choose any interesting way to start your essay. But these two are most important elements. You might not, well, you shouldn't miss any of these two elements in your opening or introduction. The second part of your critique essay is the summary. What summary is it? It's going to be the summary of first the entire story, if that's what you will be writing about, or two, it can also be a summary of just one aspect of the story that you want to focus on. For example, if you want to focus on the character, then write a summary of the character. If you want to focus on the crime, write a summary of the crime. If you want to focus on the conflict, then write a summary of only the conflict. So these are what you can do in your summary. Next comes the third and main part of this essay, which is the discussion. In this discussion session, basically, you support what you have offered in the thesis statement with more evidence and discussion. I believe you still remember when you took inferential reading with me last year. An argument is considered strong if at least it has a claim, an evidence or support, and a warrant or explanation. The claim in this case is your thesis statement. And the evidence is your evidence from the text, maybe a quote from the text, or a paraphrase from the text, or a summary from the text. And explanation is what you do to make your evidence relatable to the claim. In the part where you propose your evidence, you can also use external quotes, actually. You can use sources from outside the book to help explain the book. I believe you remember when we did inferential reading, we also discussed elaborative questions. Elaborative questions are questions that you can answer with use of the text plus external sources. External sources can be your memory, your knowledge, your experience, or from books outside the particular book that you are now discussing. Okay, now after going with the main part of the story comes the end of the story, which is not the end of the story, the end of the essay, which is the conclusion. So here's the conclusion. You restate the highlights or important takeaways from this essay. You don't have to say anything. I mean, you don't have to say everything that you have said in the essay, but you may pick some of the most important things that you want the reader to take away after reading this. You want the reader to still remember what you have discussed here in the conclusion. Okay, if you want to stop for a while, pause and take a screen shot here. Right, now let's go to the general writing process. For me, a writing process is not just sitting down and writing. I believe I have told you this, but I have to emphasize this once again. The general writing process for a critique essay starts with the pre-writing. Then comes the drafting part. Then eventually you have the post-writing stage. It is very important that you follow this three-stage writing process. For me, it guarantees that even though my writing is not very good, it is well supported and presentable if I follow this three-stage writing process. During the writing process, during the pre-writing part, you brainstorm for ideas, you do research, you take notes from the novels, and so on. And in the drafting process, you present the result of your brainstorming and researching and taking notes and analyzing. Yeah, you are presenting the result of your pre-writing stage. And finally, during the post-writing part, you do the revision and edition, or revising and editing. I'm sorry for, it's mouthful. Yeah, revising means fixing the structure of the text, and editing is usually fixing the language with which you present your ideas. Okay, these are the general stages in our writing process. Now, let me take you to more details into the actual writing process. Yeah, the writing process of a critique starts with the pre-writing process. Pre-writing is also known as writing for knowledge. You write to gain knowledge or to gather information. During the pre-writing process, first of all, you need to identify something about the story that you're interested in a discussion, something you're curious about. It can be the theme, it can also be the character, the crime, or the conflict. But these are not all. You may add any other elements here. Just pick one for this particular essay. Just pick one, either a theme, character, crime, a conflict, or anything else. Now, after you decide what you want to write about, what you're curious about, then ask elaborative questions. Elaborative questions, let me remind you again, are questions that can be answered with the help of the text plus external sources or knowledge. Examples of elaborative questions are this one. Is the story convincing? How is it related to the real life? how is the crime related to the real life? Just like when I asked you, how is the crime in Clearwater journals related to actual life as we know it? Okay. And then what kind of crime is it? Is it a serious crime? Is it a racial crime? Or is it a crime of passion and so on? Try to ask these questions. And then you might want to also ask about the second meaning of what you see in the text. What does our character represent? Does our character represent good, represent evil, or represent modern man, or represent people who live under the capitalist society, and so on? Try to ask these elaborative questions that you can only answer by looking at the text and looking beyond the text, finding external sources. Or if you want to write about the romance, what kind of love is it? Is it an affectionate love? Is it a platonic love, and so on? There are many other questions you can ask. You might ask me to check whether your question is a good one or not. Okay, and then finally, after you after you decide what area you want to write about, after you decide the questions you want to ask, now comes the last part of this stage, which is trying to answer these questions you have created yourself by looking into the text to find quotes or to find passages in the text, and looking beyond the text, finding an article online, or maybe from a book or other parts that hopefully can help you answer the question. After you get the question, then you summarize the answer into just probably one sentence. And that one sentence summary of the answer is your thesis statement. Now, at this point, you already have the raw materials for your essay. Then in the drafting process, you try to use these raw materials into creating an essay. How do you do that? First of all, what you need to do is, you remember, right? The first part of your critique essay is the introduction. Now, in the section 1, in the introduction section, open it interestingly, nicely, and then present your thesis statement, which is the result of the pre-writing process. Then comes section 2, in which you summarize parts of the story that you want to focus on. If you decide to focus on the character, this is where you summarize or make a summary of the character. If you want to talk about the conflict, present the summary of the conflict here. You don't have to summarize the entire story if you really don't think you will need it, okay? Then comes the third section, or the discussion section, in which you present your support for the thesis statement. Where do you get the support? You actually get the support by from the answer to the question that you have done in the pre-writing process. Present the answer, support it with evidence from the text, like quotes, and then explain the quotes to make it a strong argument. You remember now that an argument, a strong one, needs to have at least 3 elements: claim, evidence, warrant. The claim, the support, and the explanation. Yeah, these 3 elements are what you need here. And finally, after you present all the supports that you have for the question or for the thesis statement, you summarize, you conclude the essay by summarizing the main takeaways from this essay, or the main parts or the highlights of the essay. And finally comes the third part, which is the post-writing section. In this section, you revise the general structure of the text by checking this list. Make sure your introduction already has the subject and the thesis statement, and make sure you have a summary which summarizes the important part that you want to discuss. Also check your section 3 to make sure that your discussion already has the claim, evidence, and warrant, and check also your conclusion. So that's what you do when you are revising. You check the structure of your essay to make sure it's a strong essay. Then comes the editing process, which is fixing sentences or the grammar, or sometimes word choice. And finally, you proofread to make sure that there is no typographical errors in the text, and there is no minor problems, minor errors in the text. Hopefully, it can be done within probably 2 weeks, as I believe you all have read Volunteers and Clearwater journals, which are good to help you start writing. If you have any questions, as usual, everyone, feel free to ask me over email or message, and I'll reply to the question, hopefully for the entire class, so that everyone can learn from each question. That's all, everyone. Thank you very much for listening to me in this presentation, and good luck with your essay. Bye, everyone.